Red alert! Set an intention. Go to Salon track.
Ahoy, hoy, friends, and welcome to the Salon. I am your host, Stan Williams, and I've got to come clean. I have been faking every Jantara I've been a part of. Sorry, Dax. Tonight, we are so excited. We are going to be deep diving Star Trek Con with the writers of Star Trek Con. That's right. Kirsten Beyer and David Mack are here with us live, so get excited. Before we do that, we got to do the podcast things. And here's the crew off to the side for all the podcast things. We are live Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. at Salon Trek. We are anywhere you get your podcasts at Salon Trek. You guessed it. And if you want to join our Patreon, we have some fun benefits. You can see on the screen there. Check that out at patreon.com/you guessed it, Salon Trek. All right, enough of that. Let me beam in the crew for real this time. All righty, I got to start with my co-host, Trevor. How you do?
I feel like we've done this before.
Speaking of doing it before, Will, you're on mute.
I knew it was going to be me. I knew that was going to be me. I was like, I'm going to be next.
And yet you were on mute. Speaking
I
of it's going to be her, here's Krista. Krista, how you do?
Hello.
The siren of Ceti Alpha V herself is with us. Do you want to do it live?
Do you want me to do it live? Ready?
Let me bring in Ken, and then for the full crew, give us your best. Star Trek.
And with that, wow.
Oh goodness!
Hi everybody.
Let's go ahead and cut the silliness and get right into it, y'all. We have the writers of Star Trek Con joining us. Let's beam them in. And we will bring them in.
Well, that's a hell of an intro.
She's a trained vocalist, classically trained.
Welcome. Kirsten, David, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Salon. We hope to have you both back individually because we could talk to each of you for hours. You have, no pun intended, a storied Star Trek career with novels, writing episodes, and there it is. And I can't wait. So we're gonna get right into it. But first, how y'all doing this Thursday evening? How are you feeling about the reception to Star Trek Con thus far?
Go ahead, Dave.
We're doing pretty good over here in New York. Feeling good. Got some pages written tonight already, so I'm on track for my next project. But as far as Con, I've been very happy with the critical and fan reception. It's going over very well. People seem to get what we were going for, and that's just very satisfying.
Yeah, me too. It's
She says ditto.
Surprising. Usually Star Trek has a much more mixed response to kind of anything we put out these days. And it feels that this has been a little more kind of overwhelmingly, even if you didn't love every single thing about it, there was a lot there that people did enjoy, and especially just trying out something in audio for Trek. It seemed like it was exciting to folks. So that's cool.
That's wonderful. All right, well, let's get into it in depth. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host to kick things off.
Well, and to begin, we will set an intention, as we always do. And in order to do that tonight, we will ask you two the same question we ask of every special guest. Normally, our intention setter is a little bit different depending on the week. But for special guests, we always like to ask about headcanon. So what is your Star Trek headcanon? So we've never seen it on screen, but you just know that it's true. Even if you hate headcanon, you've got something in your little noggin that you know is true, even though we've never seen it. I stumped you both.
All right. I'll
I
go
know
first. Dave.
Kirsten's dog has thoughts.
Do you want me to kill them?
No. We love dogs here.
I don't know what her problem is. Anyway, all right.
Canon. Like Will, she doesn't like headcanon.
All right.
Clearly.
All right, you want a bit of headcanon? I'll
Please.
give you a bit. I'll give you a bit of headcanon. Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, the whole thing about David Marcus and the proto matter, all that stuff you heard in Star Trek III, Search for Spock. It's all wrong. The Genesis device worked perfectly. In fact, it worked exactly as intended. Proto matter was never the problem. In fact, it worked just fine. The problem was it wasn't deployed correctly. The instructions clearly said deploy it on the surface of a rocky planetoid of appropriate mass, gravitational, numbers or whatever, in orbit of the right kind of star. Where did these idiots set it off? In the middle of the Mutara Nebula. It wasted all of its energy pulling the nebula elements together to build a planet and then set it in motion and then compensate the fact that it was in the wrong orbital. That's where all the energy went, and that's why the planet was unstable. If they deployed the damn thing correctly, it would have worked just fine. That's my headcanon. The Genesis device worked perfectly.
Not only great headcanon, but a great T-shirt. Kirsten.
Okay, so this is mine, and I'm just going to do one about Khan.
Sure.
The part of his life before we saw it, before Space Seed, because I had to do a lot of thinking about how to pull together what little we know of the eugenics wars and how he became, the ruler of a quarter of the world, or like whatever the fuck that was. And it is my belief that he and all of his, companions raised in the lab, given all of these amazing skills, sent out first to conquer the Middle East by these people who made them, essentially. And that there is a moment after they successfully subdued and got rid of whoever was in charge at that time and whatever, that the creators came and said, awesome, well done. You guys back to the lab. We're going to take it from here. And Khan was like, no. Looking around, you have fucked up everything about this world, and I'm 100% sure we can do it better. And that's what we're going to do. That's one thing.
I love it. I love everything about both of those answers. To dive in a little bit deeper into each of your histories in terms of your first contact with Star Trek, I'd just like to kind of ping pong back and forth. Kirsten, we'll stick with you. What was your first contact with the franchise? Not necessarily as a writer, but just did you watch the original series? Was it movies? Was it Next Gen?
Yeah, it was the original series. I was probably in the first or second grade, and it was on in the afternoons after I got back from school. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to watch TV and my older brother wanted to watch TV, we had to pick a show we could both agree on, because if we fought, we lost television privileges. So Star Trek, for whatever reason, was one of the only shows that we could agree on. So I saw a lot of the original series when I was very, very young. And then it came back to me the summer I was 16. I was at the Oklahoma Shakespearean Festival for the summer, which was wildly inappropriate for a 16-year-old, but there I was. And the guys in the costume department loved TOS as well. And like in wherever we were, Durant, Oklahoma, it was like 11:30 every night. So we would all like work and do all these other things I'm not going to talk about. And then we would sit down and watch the 11:30 Star Trek. So yeah, it's kind of been there, the original series, forever. I didn't get deeper into the rest of it until I was out of graduate school, though, because I just didn't have a lot of time to watch TV.
Sure. Makes sense. David?
I pretty much tell the same story. Kirsten and I, believe it or not, are the same age, even though I look 10 years older. I don't know how she does it. She's got a painting stored in the basement of her house or something. I'm sure of it. But I grew up watching original series and syndicated reruns in the early 70s, probably around the same age, kindergarten, first grade. And I imprinted on it like a duckling imprints on the first moving thing that it sees. I imprinted on Trek. And this became my template for what to expect in the future. And this is how friends treat each other. And this is what life is all about: teamwork and exploration, and not judging people based on appearances, etc. So I internalized the entire ethos of Star Trek at a very young age. And I remained interested in Trek through the movies. By then, I was already a diehard fan. I had the famous cutaway poster of the refit Enterprise in my bedroom as a kid. Then, of course, Wrath of Khan, the other movies. Right at the time I started NYU Film School was when Star Trek Next Generation dropped. And my parents would tape all the Next Gen episodes for me. Now, by this point, I'd seen every episode like 5, 10 times. So now they take Next Gen for me, and I'd come home on college break and watch TNG. And so I had this slowly growing library of TNG back before they would ever, release them commercially. And then second season TNG, they started doing more policy in film schools. I'm like, gotta try that. So I started sending in spec scripts and getting rejection letters and more rejection letters and more rejection letters. But that was really, how I came to Trek.
Fantastic. And then in terms of your first experience, Kirsten, in terms of your career connection to Star Trek, how did that begin?
Okay. So I've just finished graduate school and gotten married, and my husband and I both did the MFA program at UCLA as actors. We both got our Masters of Fine Arts in Acting. And he had the nerve to get cast in a play that I was not cast in. So I found myself in like January of that year with a lot of time on my hands alone at night. And that happened to be when Voyager premiered. And I started watching Voyager because there were a number of folks I had worked with at UCLA who had worked on it, either as directors or actors or whatever. So I was just kind of starting out going like, well, let me see what they did. Right. And after a few episodes of watching it, and I can't tell you why, because I had no idea that this was going to happen. I had an idea for an episode. And like I told my husband about it, like at work the next day over lunch. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? Write it? And I was like, I think I will. And I literally started to study Voyager. It's the first show I ever watched from the beginning as it aired all the way through. I started to study the show, how it was structured, how it was put together, just how it worked as a thing. And I kind of taught myself early TV writing just by watching Voyager. And then I found out that they had that open submission policy where without an agent, without any kind of, anything, you could sign a release and send them a script and they would read it. So I did that twice. Both of them were rejected. I didn't understand at the time that the point was to actually get pitch meetings because I didn't even know what those were. But by the time I finished that process, I was in love with writing. I started writing other things just to see if I could and kept watching Voyager. And about early in the 4th season, there was an episode that premiered that was so bad, it made me angry. So I wrote a very snotty letter to Jerry Taylor, who was the executive, producer of the show at the time, and told her I was supposed to be working for her. And she wrote me back and she said, why don't you come in and pitch? So I started pitching to Star Trek Voyager. The first person I ever pitched to was Brian Fuller, who was a baby writer on Voyager at the time and was very kind and patient with me. So that began the process of me developing stories for them. None of which I ever sold, but boy, did I get a ton of valuable experience during those meetings. And by that point I was a writer. So, yeah.
And that kind of aggressive email should come to your email address now.
David Allen.
I love that.
It wasn't even an email, guys. It was a typed out letter that I the whole thing.
Yes, that's the way to do it. Snail mail.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna bring on Krista for our next question, but real quick, David, there was a little bit of sound issues for you. You may need to drop out and come back in again. I know StreamYard is getting a lot of feedback from me the last couple of weeks.
While David does that, I have a question for Kirsten. If you don't mind, what was the pitch? That first pitch to Fuller.
Oh God, I don't even know. I had like 5 of them. I'll tell you the most interesting pitch, which actually wasn't to Fuller. It was to Taylor. I had created a story to Mike Taylor. Sorry, Mike Taylor. I had created a story that was meant to address head on the relationship between Janeway and Chakotay. So it put them in a situation where they were going to have to acknowledge that they had feelings for each other and that they weren't going to do anything about it because of their respective positions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I would pitch to Brian, he would sit there sort of on the edge of his seat and he would listen to the whole thing. And they would ask me all these very interesting questions. And then like we would move on, right? But Mike was sitting there and he was like looking around and stats. I wasn't even sure he was like listening to it. And at the end of it, he was like, well, I don't think we can really. And what's funny is that's the only pitch meeting I've ever walked out of. I was like, I don't think we're interested in telling the same kind of story. So I'm going to go ahead and stop wasting my time and I'm going to go. And he called me at home later and apologized. He was like, I'm really sorry. I buy stuff all the time. I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyway, it was cool. But that story became the basis for the very first short story I ever wrote, which was Isabeau's shirt in the Distant Shores anthology for Voyager's 10-year anniversary. That's where that story came from, was that pitch.
That's awesome. David, now that you're back, you can hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you
much
perfectly.
better. Chris.
Good.
So now we can be
Yes, I'm going to say, speaking of Chris, let's bring in the siren of Ceti Alpha V for our next question. And I'm going to go ahead and disappear.
Stop.
Songstress herself.
Yeah. So
Wait, real quick. I'm so sorry. I'm back. I just want to acknowledge the dog.
Sorry.
Adorable.
No,
This is Lulu, everybody. She won't shut up. So I'm just gonna
Adorable. All right, I'm going to go now.
It worked.
she's
It
welcome
worked.
here.
Okay, I had to. I'm going to read my questions because if you've watched the show, I tend to get lost in a word salad, and then I really indulge in the flavors, and so it's going to go on for a long time. So I just wrote this down instead. So I'm going to read them.
Yeah. Just so you know, Kristen, that is my favorite thing in the world to watch, though.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
That's so
Oh,
yeah. Okay, now I'm nervous. You
ruined it.
You're among friends. Oh, all right, fine.
Okay, so here's my paper now. Originally, Star Trek Con was pitched by Nicholas Meyer as a full-time series in TV format and didn't really get picked up, and it eventually gained traction once it evolved into an opportunity as an audio drama. So at what point of this evolution did y'all become involved? And so specifically what I'm wondering is, was there like pages thrown at you that said, hey, this is where we're going? Or was it you guys just said, I think we can pull this shit off. Let's collaborate and throw together a bunch of ideas that we've wanted to explore but never got to explore? Or were you really just building on someone else's idea and sort of fleshing it out and making it your own, but not really necessarily exploring some of the things that you might have wanted to explore? Is that making sense?
It does. And like all of the above are kind of true, except for the part where we sort of came into it on our own. This was a project that they'd been working on it for a couple of years. And it was literally, I always remember, because it was the day after the writer's strike ended. I got a phone call from Alex that, he was going to send me 9 scripts. And he wanted me to take a look at them because they had a lot of challenges. Some of them were story issues, but a lot of them were just about the Star Trek of it all. Because Nick, quite famously, this is going to sound wrong. It's not that he doesn't care about Star Trek. He hasn't gone deep into it, right? And when he first made Wrath of Khan, there were like 80 hours of it in existence, and now there are 900, right? He has no idea how various aspects of the Khan story had been developed in other ways and kind of bumped up against other stories now and whatever. So what they needed me to do was to go through and make sure we were telling the story in a way that was going to track with everything that we knew about this and the universe. And I was like, cool. I am also working on 2 other shows right now. So I'm going to call David and he's going to help me with all of this. And so he and I took a look at all of the scripts. Then yeah.
That's about how we felt. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So he and I took a look at it, and I think the first thing that we did was actually take our own pass at like, okay, if we were telling this story, like how would we do it?
Right.
And once we had done that, there was a lot of stuff there that everybody liked. And then there were still aspects of what Nick had that everybody liked. So I then spent the next several months meeting with Nick every morning and sort of horse trading with, was most important to him, and what were the things he was really trying to get at, and how could we sort of fold these two things together. And so the result is a process of merging those two things.
So who I'm asking on behalf of somebody in the chat, who brought in Coleridge and Slouching Towards Bethlehem? Was that nice? Nice. Okay. All right. Second question. Here's my paper. All right. So you're both successful authors and experienced with episodic writing and within the franchise. And I mean, we all know that. I'm curious if you found the audio format more or less challenging due to the lack of visual bells and whistles. And like, I'm trying to put myself in your position and figure out how you go from writing novels where basically your editor curb stomps you and says, okay, this is the amount of length that we can deal with. Visual, which has all the bells and whistles of, if you can't express it in words, you can show it. This medium has neither of those options. It has a very exact, like, algorithm, don't go more than an hour amount of time, and it has no visuals to kind of convey. So I'm trying to figure out, how did you switch your creative process to make it more appropriate or applicable to something that lacks things that you're kind of used to and things that the franchise in general is kind of used to? I mean, I loved it because I listened to audiobooks. I listened to the audio dramas, lifetime member at audible.com. It's an addiction. There's a program. And I loved it. And the sound effects were awesome, but I'm trying to figure out, how involved were you and how much of your own creative process had to adjust? And if there was anything that you felt during the process that you would now, after having time to get feedback and to sort of hear what people are thinking about it, is there something that you would change, or is there something that you would absolutely incorporate to anything else that you do in the future? Is there like one thing that that's a lot of questions. So, you know,
that's like 8 questions.
I did a fucking word. You saw me put the paper down. That's what fucking happens. Eat my jelly bellies and drink my wine.
I'm not saying there's a problem with 8 fucking questions. I'm just saying it's going to take a little time to answer. Yeah, it made things a little more difficult when you don't have visuals to rely on. Kirsten and I are both veterans of TV, so we're used to visual storytelling. I've written a lot of screenplays, went to film school. Fortunately, she had already written an audio drama with Mike Johnson called No Man's Land, starring Jerry Taylor and what's her name?
Michelle.
Anyway, right, Michelle Hurd. Not Hurd. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So yeah, Jerry done one. I had gotten some experience working with the audio drama format, developing some projects at Realm that never quite got off the ground. But I got to be in some writers' rooms. I got to do some sample scripts. I got to work with editor Marco Palmieri. So I got to learn the format. I at least had a chance to understand it before I got tapped for con. So it is a more challenging format because you have to think in terms of being able to set the stage with dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
You need to think about sonic environments, making them unique from one another. You got to think about audio transitions. You got to think about, how is the audience going to know what's happening if I don't explain it to them? There are certain things you can write it in the script, but you can't hear it. You
Right.
can see it in the script, but if you don't understand how that's going to translate into a sound, sometimes you have to go back and rethink a scene. So those were issues with which we had to contend. Things that I wish I could have had more involvement in. I was only the first draft writer for the most of it, and I gave some late notes. I wish I had put up more of a fight about insisting that certain characters should have certain types of accents, or at least that there should be differentiating accents for all the characters, because we did get some listener feedback that some of the characters, especially some of the female characters, they found a little hard to tell apart in certain scenes. And we could have alleviated that. We could have done a better job with that. I wish we had, but live, learn, move on. So that's probably about the only thing I think we would have done differently. Other than that, I'm very pleased with the way it all sort of translated.
Yeah, I just to add a little bit to that, because I was going to say the same thing in terms of the biggest criticism has to do with differentiation of voices, because I was involved in all the casting, and I'm trying to figure out seriously now how much of it is actually the voices, and by the way, it's the women's voices that everybody seems to complain about. And in my head, I keep going back to the sound of Hillary Clinton's voice and the problem of that. And I'm just like, are we really still fucking here, guys? Like, because to me, these women could not sound more different, right? But I'm starting to wonder if this was a trap I fell into in the writing of not in terms of like just the writing itself and voice and speech patterns, differentiating them enough. That the problem isn't them so much as me. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. So that's something I think I would work on next time.
We should have thought more about their diction patterns.
Yeah.
Things like that.
But I mean, yeah, like if we were still trying to figure out who they were as people. So, I mean, that was the
we didn't have a lot of time.
No, we didn't. And so it was like, what's the name and all of that, right?
You have no time. It's all so concise that it's almost insurmountable. So the fact that you even pulled it off, and the fact that it was so enjoyable. I mean, I loved it. I loved it. And I hear your thoughts on some of the things that you would change. And I think my first response would be, I can't tell one character from another, but I think as it progresses, you get more of a thing. I will say that I couldn't get Boris and Natasha out of my head for Ivan. I'm sorry if that's offensive. But it was so
better than Yakov Smirnov.
Out of my head. Huh? Say it again.
Better than Yakov Smirnov. In Russia, augments kill you.
It was kind of, we got potatoes, we've got vodka, we've got the rabid warfare mind. I mean, it was a little, and now he has a Russian accent, and that I'm. Yeah.
I just want to do 5 seconds on the accent thing, because I am still of two minds on this, and this is also just like a me hang up, right? Like, there was lots of discussion at various points in this about everybody having an accent, nobody having an accent. Nick, when he did his versions, everybody had names that sort of very clearly reference where they came from. We changed a fair number of those. Ivan was one of the ones that we didn't. And Ivan was one of the ones who he said very explicitly had a Russian accent. And I was trying to keep as much as I sort of like could as we were going through this, right? But I had to do all these mental gymnastics to even justify that, because I'm like, these guys are raised in a lab. They have the same adults talking to them. They might have from time to time been out in other places, but like, where would they pick up a fucking accent?
Right.
And then, and for me, like, that's a deal breaker. Like if I can't figure out how to make it true in the story, I get really upset.
Well, you could have asked me, and I just would have said there's more than one lab.
Well, okay, so maybe there's a lab in Moscow, but like,
put a lab in Paris.
But like, what I did instead in my head was I was like,
one
okay.
with the Pepperidge Farm guy. There wasn't one with Pepperidge Farm Remembers. I mean,
yeah,
there wasn't one in Australia.
No, there wasn't. But like in my head, I'm like, okay, so maybe, they conquered the first part of it, and then Khan sent Ivan to Russia, and Ivan got to Russia, and like for the first time, like fell in love with the place, and like he's like this, a guy who had no idea who he was as an individual. Just part of this machine until that moment. He goes to Russia and he sort of like finds himself in this, and he sort of adopts it into his identity, so that when he comes back, he's like, well, it's like the Gillian Anderson thing, right? Like now she speaks with a British accent, but she's from Chicago. Like, like this like that could get me there. But I really had a hard time with anybody. I mean, I knew Naveen was going to be Naveen, right? But I just couldn't get around in my head that everybody else was going to have a different accent. It was going to hurt me. So
because we're on the
Billy and
topic,
Anderson defense.
Billy Anderson. On the topic of accents, though, there's one character I want to just explore really quickly, if we can. The character of Mado, the accent is decidedly African, which conjures a clear visual, at least for many listeners. I'm curious about the intentionality of the visual and the actual sort of burdens placed upon the character. Like, what was the intentionality there? Was there intentionality? What was that?
My script said French.
Yeah. Mado was French. That was all we knew about her when we wrote her. And like there were a lot of French little phrases and things that David had written in. And I took all of that out because again, I was just mad about the accents and I just wasn't going to be dealing with any of that stuff, right?
Right.
Because those might have helped us distinguish the characters.
Yeah.
Darling, let's not fight in front of the children.
But if you're going to do it here,
but this is the creative process. This is how we work. You know, we argue stuff out.
Right.
Yeah.
So Mado was French, and I had no idea what the color of her skin. I didn't care. We were never going to see it, right? And then, but what she actually was, that also sort of got through a process of attrition in the cutting as we were editing this thing in post.
Yeah.
She was a brilliant scientist in her own right who was going to keep everybody fed. Like her responsibility was to grow the food and to and then she's got the great idea about the eels and how we're going to stop them with the diatomation, all that stuff. Right. But she also was like a real friend to Marla. Like she was the one augment who from the top did not hate her, just kind of on principle. Right. And there was a lot of her giving Ursula a hard time for being such a bitch to Marla that I think we had one or two of those, but a lot of it kind of got stripped away. And as they went along, as they both got pregnant, kind of around the same time, they also started to bond over that. So by the time we get to 5 years later, in my mind, Mado is all of these things, right? And of such like absolutely of an equal status with anybody else. But she's the one with the deepest personal connection to Marla other than Khan. So the choice for her to raise like that child becomes, it's like, she's my sister and there's no fucking way anybody else is going to raise this kid. Like I couldn't even imagine it. But then very easily I could imagine the conflict that would create for her and Ursula. Because I don't think Ursula was up for any of that after they lost their kid. Right.
Yeah, but it also makes sense that she would take on the kid because she's gone through the trauma of losing hers, and this is a way to fill that emotional void.
Right. So then we go to casting, and we listen to 20 different people, and Zuri knocked it out of the park for me from the very beginning, and I'm like, great, there's Mado. And at some point between the first and the second read, it's my understanding now. Because with Realm now, I'm having conversations about, do we want these guys to have accents or not? And I'm like, I don't know, but okay. They went to the casting directors and they were like, tell everybody if they do an accent well, whatever it is, to do it on their reading. So everybody recorded like their second pass and then some sort of an accent with it. I never heard those, right? We're like the night before we're going to record and I'm on the phone with Zuri because she has a lot of Star Trek questions. And one of the things she says is, oh, by the way, I did one take with like a, Kenyan African accent. Is that something you want? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's sit with Fred tomorrow when we start recording and let's listen to it. And if we like it, maybe. And I think the reason that I went, when we heard it and it was beautiful, I was like, oh, because there's this lullaby in the show that I think we only hear a few snippets of now. It used to be, we heard it a lot more. There was actually a scene between Mado and Marla where she was teaching it to Marla. And Marla was like, how did you learn that? She's like, oh, I spent some time in Kenya before whatever. And so she has this beautiful accent and there's this scene and I'm like, oh my God, it's Kismet. This is what's supposed to happen. And that's all I'm thinking as we then go ahead and record the whole thing. And yes, there is a part of me, and what Fred agreed to was like, that will make her voice definitely distinguishable. Because with Ursula and Marla and Erica and Silvana, it was a little bit harder. So That's how we got there.
I will,
We ended up in a completely different place somehow.
all of the characters I have sort of a picture of, but I think probably the most distinct for me is Mado. So I think all credit to the words that were put in the actress's mouth and the way that the actress delivered them. So
Yeah, she did a beautiful job.
thank you for her.
Loved her. Yeah.
I think now we will transition to a question from Ken. We're going to beam Ken in.
Hello. First of all, I guess I'm the resident TOSer, so I appreciate you both very, very much. I had that cutaway poster hanging above my bed. I also watched in Philadelphia after school, the original series, every day after school. And Philadelphia was one of those cities that really was the driver of the syndication generation, so I'm very proud of that. So as two lifelong TOS fans, being able to see and do con and take from Space Seed to the Wrath of Khan, it must have been so amazing. Just, one of the biggest chills I had, I mean, the whole show was fantastic, but talk about special guest stars, hearing the TOS phaser, that must have been wonderful to put that in there and think about that. So here you had Space Seed, and here you had the Wrath of Khan. So you were definitely bookended. And so how did you think about a couple of things? What if there's a question? Was there a question in Space Seed? Was there a question in the Wrath of Khan? David, I love your headcanon about the Genesis device, and I completely agree. A question that had been bothering you or you've been thinking about for your entire life to say, hey, we're writing this con story. Now, what is the thing, the kernel that maybe was there that I can finally tackle from Space Seed and with the Wrath of Khan? Was there one of those? And then just basically, how did you thread the story working around the canon that was sort of at both ends of this story? What was that like?
I didn't really have any of those questions, to be honest. I never needed more than what I got in Space Seed or in Wrath of Khan. I was willing to just take the story as it was given to me, and I thought, yeah, that works. And Ceti Alpha 6 exploded, our orbit shifted, planet laid waste, my wife died, and now I will kill you. That's all I really need. I'm in. So, no, I didn't have any burning unanswered questions.
I think it's not like I had questions that were bothering me my whole life, but once I sat down and started looking at it, it really became clear to me watching Space Seed and then Wrath that these were two different people. And I had never really clocked that before, right? But I was like, wait a minute, he's not pissed at Kirk at all. Like, he's kind of excited about the idea of going down and conquering a world and being in charge and all that stuff. So how did we get to I fucking hate Kirk? Yes, his wife died. Like, I get it. But for me, it just didn't quite, I don't know. Once I had that as kind of like the guiding principle of it, it just made me want to go deeper and deeper and deeper into how does this guy's mind work? Like, who is this fella? And that was what the process kind of was.
How do you take somebody this strong and break him?
Well, and how strong is he? And in what ways is he strong? Right?
And where are the weak points?
Yeah, like one of the things that another thing that people sort of call out from time to time is like, God, these guys make a lot of dumb decisions. Like, they're supposed to be the fucking smartest, like whatever. And I'm like, okay, guys, there's literally 4 different kinds of intelligence, right? There's like intelligence, it's like problem solving and memorizing shit and whatever. There's emotional intelligence, which is the ability to regulate your own emotions. There's social intelligence, which is working and playing well with others. And then there's adversarial intelligence, which is about resilience, right? I think the augments were like really strong in the first one and the fourth one. I think that problem solving and tactics and strategies and like whatever, great, and resilient as fuck. But I don't think they had any emotional or societal intelligence. And if you go back through and you look at these things that they're doing that are dumb, those tend to be the kinds of problems that they're failing at. So
I love that. And then sort of going back to TOS, what was it like to, and I know you guys have been in Star Trek forever, but to finally bring, George Takei and Captain Sulu forward That's one question, and I just would love to hear that, and then also this concept of I'm forgetting the second question because I didn't write it down. Stan will slap me later.
I think you were going to ask Ken about the sort of the Ceti Alpha of it all.
Yeah, but so first is the idea of what was it like to play in the TOS universe? Because there's not now, you're talking about Voyager, obviously Voyager had some great TOS moments in it, but what was it like to play in the TOS universe and being able to pull George Takei in? How was that?
Well, so one of the first things that David and I came up with as we were looking at the material was the framing story, and really felt the need for that story. So once you're in that time period, it's like, who do we have? And Sulu always made a whole bunch of sense to me. But just like whether or not we could get him, there was a show that was on that came out a couple of years ago, and I think the second season will be out soon. It's one of my favorite things that has been created in a very long time. It's called Blue Eye Samurai. And he was in that. And I remember watching that and being like, oh my God, that's George Takei. Oh my God, he's still working. Oh my God. Like, and just being like, that could totally be a thing, right? So I had that sort of like spinning around in my brain when this came to us. And then it just sort of felt like kismet. And then for me, the fact that we knew from Canon that Tuvok was also there was just a bonus, because Tuvok is one of my absolute all-time favorite Star Trek characters. And bridging, that's the thing, like this whole story is a bridge and an attempt to tie some things together. And there are very few people whose lifespan or whose adventures sort of cover that whole period, but they are two of them, Sulu sort of at the end of his career and Tuvok at the very, very beginning. So it was all just kind of like, when you're creating something like this, when something feels that right, you just go, oh yeah, done, moving on, And there was a lot of that when it came to Sulu. And then it was like, also looking at him in TOS, he didn't get a chance to be the point of view character a lot. He didn't get a chance to say a lot of the things that I think he would have liked to have said over the years. And I wanted to make sure that when we had him, that we actually gave him, a real point of view and a real need and a real drive, which in this case became to protect Kirk's legacy, but also to sort of express his own thoughts about all of this. And I feel like we were able to do that, to a large extent. I could have always done more, but there's always the needs of the story and the balance of all of that gets really tricky. So it was just joyful. And he, of course, added stuff, once he came in. I had done the thing where I had, like, in terms of the music that he was listening to, I had this whole thing about how sounds were calming to him. A lot of it ended up getting cut, but that he actually really liked the sound of the TOS ship's engine. It resonated at a certain frequency, and he found that it actually was calming to the entire crew, and the Excelsior did not at the same. So he always found himself looking for sounds that would sort of compensate. But so I had queued for certain, random music that he would be listening to in his quarters or whatever. And I was hoping our composers would come up with something fabulous. And when he came in and recorded, he was like, could he be listening to For Elise? Could he be listening to this? Could he? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And Fred too, it was wonderful. He was a partner, a creative partner.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love that you called into calling out Kirk's legacy. Challenging Captain Kirk was a bad guy. The idea that Captain Kirk was a bad guy was just, or potentially a bad guy. That was a pretty powerful point. Yeah.
Well, and again, I don't think even if we had revealed that he was totally responsible, and he did that on purpose, Kirk is not a bad guy. Kirk had to make a hard decision out on the frontier with very limited resources, and did the best he could at the time. That's sort of the point of all of this in a way. This notion that we already know Khan is bad. What more do we need to know about him? I need to know everything about him, because I need to understand how to spot these people in the wild and, make sure that we get them the help they need rather than, putting them in charge of the government.
Yeah.
Yes, art imitating life, imitating art.
I probably shouldn't have said that out loud.
Yes,
but
you should have, especially in this space. That is a we are as one in terms of our thought process there. Ken, I think your Ceti Alpha question was really centered on the Alborians. If you
Yeah, it was. So the idea that counting the Reliant was not able to count planets, right? Somehow the sensors are off. So what was that about? And then can you talk about how the idea of the Alborians came about, and were there other ideas that you considered?
Want me to take the planet count one?
Sure.
Well, we actually had an answer for why the planets didn't add up for Reliant. We had found this thing about real planetary mechanics, things called horseshoe orbits, where as the planets go like this and come around, they sort of bump against each other and they swap. They go from inside to outside track and then go back the other way. And it's a really weird thing, but they found it. They found star systems that do this. It's a bizarre thing, but it exists. So our theory was Ceti Alpha V and Ceti Alpha 6 were one of these horseshoe paired things. One of them spends half its time on the inner track and half its time on the outer track, and the other one parallels and mirrors. When Ceti Alpha 6 is destroyed, it happens at a point when Ceti Alpha 5 is on the outer track. The moment its partner is lost and they can no longer do the gravitational bounce moment that sends them back, now it's stuck in the outer track, and that's where it's going to stay. And the debris field from what was 6 is now on the inner track, and it spreads through the inner track, at least that which doesn't fall onto Ceti Alpha 5, to a ship that's coming back after many years. What it's going to look like is something happened. It's going to look like Ceti Alpha 5 was destroyed, and Ceti Alpha 6 is going to appear to be intact. Lifeless orb. Yeah, that's what we expected. That's Ceti Alpha 6. It's right where it ought to be. Ceti Alpha 5. Well, that's a shame. You had a little buoy telling you this system is interdicted, attempt no landing here. Don't go to Ceti Alpha 5. Well, Ceti Alpha 5 is gone. I guess the warning doesn't matter anymore. As opposed, and for the whole question of, why didn't we investigate? Ceti Alpha 5 blew up 6 months after we left. From Starfleet's and the Federation's point of view, they would have probably checked back on an annual basis. They probably came back 12 months later and went, well, that sucks. Okay, he's dead. Let's move on. And they probably even took their buoy and went home. And at that point, it was just another dead planet in another star system that nobody goes to. Nobody miscounted. It's just mistaken identity.
And sadly, that's the kind of scientific detail that in a story like this, it's one of the first things that gets cut.
Because there's no way to work it in organically.
It's really, really
you
hard.
You have to stop the whole narrative to spit that out. It took me 5 minutes to tell you that.
Yeah.
It would have been an interesting visual in an episode. On the screen in the conference room, you would see the orbits. And
if you have a visual, you can do it in 30 seconds.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, but you can't. And then in terms of the Alborians, so Delmonda was always a character for Nick. And the idea of these refugees coming to this planet was always a thing for Nick. And it was one of the first and biggest things that David and I struggled with when we joined the team. Because Nick had them coming from, they were living on Ceti Alpha 6. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Enterprise comes in, scans the system, sees a spacefaring species on Ceti Alpha 6 and that it's unstable and doesn't think there's any chance those folks are going to take their ships over to Ceti Alpha 5 and see who the new folks are and get their asses kicked by space Nazis. There's no way Kirk does that, right? So we had to do something else with all of that because the point for Nick had to do with the discussions of leadership and compassion and all of these things. I mean, for Nick, Delmonda was very much a Christ figure. That's what he wanted, right? So in our first attempt at it, what David and I came up with was a species that was intelligent and telepathic, but that was native to Ceti Alpha 5. They were like octopuses, basically. Something that the Enterprise's sensors wouldn't necessarily have picked up as an intelligent civilization, but they absolutely were those things. Because the part we were excited about was the idea of Khan making first contact. This is something that would have never really happened. Even when he was, picked up, he's still meeting other humans for the most part, right? So that's what we were interested in. But we also knew we were going to need a ship. So we had, like, hundreds of years ago, some warp capable small ship had crashed on the planet, and we were going to retrieve that and recover it. And that was the ship that we were going to use. Right. But, Nick was just very, very adamant about the refugee sort of story of it all. And it felt like the best compromise. But then it sort of necessitated what did they, if anything, have to do with the Ceti Alpha 6 of it all? It is an easy answer. Which it makes it not my favorite thing in the world, but it also wasn't the point at all of the story. Like, it became simply the Alborians were genuinely good. Like, they were that good and that emotionally evolved and that serious about their beliefs, right? They left their world behind so that they could live the way they thought that they were supposed to. And then they went and did this thing in the interest of their own survival that was completely not who they were, destroying that planet unintentionally and then destroying the world of these other people. So it made emotional sense to me that they would go to any extreme to make that right. And sadly, what it came down to, because of a lot of things, was literally being able to save like 4 people, But that was them trying to make up for this horrible thing that they had done.
What I kind of liked about it, once we were sort of committed to it, was seeing the parallel between the fact that Del Monte's people and Khan's people are both exiles of a society with which they no longer fit. It's for different reasons in each case, but these are 2 groups of exiles who have found each other. They have tons in common if only they would look past, or if only Khan and his people could look past the surface difference. And eventually I found that interesting, that there were these interesting parallels between the 2 groups, but they're also so different that lends itself naturally to conflict, exploration, and growth.
And credit to your words. I have a beautiful visual of them in my brain. So
It's all Kirsten.
Stan is back for one more hard-hitting question.
Yes, the hardest of hitting questions. I want to talk about antagonists because I am so enthralled in this being, in a way, a story about antagonists, which you don't get very often. Khan and his people, technically speaking, were the bad guys in Space Seed and Wrath of Khan. And I've heard you talk in other conversations about the dynamic between Khan and Ivan being that from Nicholas Meyer's original pitch being that of George Washington and Benedict Arnold, which for me was very fascinating as somebody who studied theater and history. I was going to be a teacher before my career went in a very different path. It gave me a new appreciation for Star Trek Khan because for some folks, George Washington is this revered figure, and a lot of people don't know who Benedict Arnold was. And while the reality is more complicated than what I'm about to say, all of the founding fathers were terrible.
Yes.
They were all terrible. They're all terrible people. They owned slaves. They built a system of government that was really great for white men who owned land. Key point.
And people.
Yes, and people. And I get, as the saying goes, and as you all put in Star Trek Khan, history is written by the victors, and all too often in our country it gets whitewashed. And so I'm very curious. In Star Trek Khan, you all do an excellent job of adding additional layers to the characters we already knew, but also adding in new characters. We've talked about some of them already, and I'm just curious about how you strike a balance with a group of antagonists where maybe outside of Ivan, depending on your perspective, they're not all cartoonishly evil, but they're also not, you heard us throughout the couple of weeks. We struggle sometimes like, man, I kind of like this guy. I don't liking this tyrant, but they're not all cartoonishly evil, but they're also not just the misunderstood villain trope. So I'm curious, how did you go about striking that balance as you either with Khan and Ivan, but any of the other characters that we haven't talked about tonight yet? How do you strike that balance for an audio drama like this?
So, okay, I'll dive in. Stop me at any time, David. Well, the minute we're in Khan, they aren't the antagonists anymore. They are the protagonists, right? And we know certain things about them because of these things that we have seen. But they're not ever, for me, anything less than very, very complicated people. It's actually kind of sad in the case of Ivan, because in some ways, what I got from what Nick was driving at had more to do with Ivan as a mirror to Khan. And what he sort of became for me was who everybody thought Khan was when this show started. Mm. Like that was what they expected from him because he's the bad guy, right? And I already had this whole life for him before that, you know, when he says, I wanted to make the earth a paradise, they have no idea the peace and glory that I wanted for them. He means it. Like that's what he was trying to accomplish. And he met with resistance for a lot of reasons, right? I'm not saying the world would have been great if he'd succeeded, because I don't think Khan the leader is as strong as Khan the fighter, right? Mm-hmm. But the journey of it was for him to sort of like be in a situation he wasn't comfortable in or familiar with, right? He's surrounded by people who love him, who adore him, who are going to do anything he says at the drop of a hat. And they're going to build this thing together. But before this time, like these weren't the people who were fighting him, right? These guys have been on the same team, of the same mind, as long as they've known each other. And the idea that they're all going to have to start finding their place in this new world, building a civilization is just very different from conquering a civilization. Mm-hmm. And what Khan had to help him was Marla. Because Marla is like the cheat sheet. She's the cliff notes to, here's where you have to get to, right? And in some ways, he was already there. Everybody is equal. We don't give a shit about nationalism. We don't, you know, like these were things that were true for him because that was his vision for us, even though he never was able to make it real. But what this new society was going to require of him was what Marla was sort of there to teach him in some ways, right? First of all, about his own humanity and his own emotional intelligence, right? I don't think he had ever loved anybody until he met her. And I think she brought out a side of him, and, you know, he found things in himself that he had never felt before, and that was scary to him. But to his credit, he went, you know, all the way in to that relationship. And then, you know, the question becomes like, what are the responsibilities that you have as a leader to these people? It isn't just to keep a roof over their head and keep them fed. They're going to have to be nurtured. We're going to have to become a civilization. We're going to have rituals. We're going to have, you know, all the things. And you saw him taking those baby steps toward all of it. And then a crisis happens and he reverts, because that's, I think, how our lives go. I'm not ever trying to say as much as I am just trying to watch people live lives that feel organic and real to me. It's Star Trek, so there's going to be heightened aspects of things and like whatever. But what I'm always searching for is sort of like essential psychological truth. And, you know, I think for Khan, it was sort of a relief when the Alborians showed up, because he didn't have to keep worrying about all that stuff that was hard. And he could go back to being the And then it was even harder because of who the Alborians were. So that was the thing I just wanted to keep doing. Just keep throwing shit at him he had never had to cope with before, and seeing what happened. And sometimes he rose to it, and a lot of times he didn't.
Okay, I found myself shouting, listen to Marla. Listen to her. Not about hot tubs, but about everything else. She made one big mistake, but other than hot tubs, listen to Marla.
Who here hasn't made a mistake in a hot tub?
Not me.
Well, those records are sealed now. So.
Yeah. David, I want to give you a chance to respond before we're about done with the silly questions. We're going to get into the hard-hitting questions here. So let me turn it to you for the last word on that question before we do that.
So you're talking about the antagonist question that we were just addressing? I mean, I think Kirsten pretty much nailed all of it. I mean, it's basically about the environment he's in. He was put in an environment where he doesn't have to conquer, he has to build. And that was essentially what the first half of Khan is about. Then the second half is he's given a situation he thinks he knows, somebody to fight, except now he's been given somebody to fight who won't fight, who isn't there to fight, who doesn't want to fight and isn't going to fight. Or if they do fight, they're not going to fight him. And I agree. I mean, I sort of take a similar approach to Star Trek storytelling as Kirsten, in that I'm always most interested in what is true in the story, what is psychologically true, what is emotionally true, and finding, what is the root of Khan's pain, what is the secret hurt that he hides from the world, and how does that inform his decisions, was really the most interesting part of the whole experience, much more so than, seeing him twirl, a non-existent mustache and be a supervillain. These were not supposed to be serial villains. These are people who, on Earth, had a vision, but when they sort of laid it out for humanity said, well, we don't want kings, and you're proposing that you be kings. And you might be benevolent kings, but we don't want kings. We're done with that now. And they had to flee Earth. Well, okay, maybe they would have built a better planet, given their own devices, and a planet with nobody else on it. Could they have lived up to their ideals? The real tragedy, the other thing too, is we were trying to find the tragedy in the story. They were given an opportunity to embrace their best selves, and for a moment, for a brief, shining moment, they looked like they might actually be able to do it. Build something for once. Work together. Unity, brotherhood, equality. Maybe, if they hadn't gotten blown up, Starfleet could have come back in a few hundred years and found something really magnificent. We'll never know, because the tragedy is it got taken away from them. They got hit with a tragedy far beyond anything they were capable of coping with, because they simply had no infrastructure. Yeah. You can't survive a calamity like that and still thrive as a civilization when you have no infrastructure.
And they didn't have Chakotay to build a canoe or a hot tub. A safe one, Marla. We could do this for hours and hours, but I do want to move past these silly questions about Star Trek Con and get to those serious questions about Star Trek Con. So let me bring in everybody and play musical chairs again. Nope. Almost. There we go. All right. It is time for our transwarp round.
My video is losing seconds. So be warned.
Okay. All right. So transwarp round. Krista, these are very serious questions. I spent hours working on them. They're incredibly serious, so take them serious, both of you. First question is best sandwich.
Turkey Club.
Either Chicken Club. Brilliant. David, what's your best sandwich?
Oh, David, you're on mute. There you are.
Katz's hot pastrami on rye with brown mustard. Katz's pastrami on rye, brown mustard.
Brilliant choices, both of you. Okay, this question is also for both of you. If you could erase one episode from Trek history, which one would you erase? Whoever's ready first. I think Kirsten has one. You mentioned one earlier that you were like, this was particularly bad at Voyager. So
yeah, that would be Nemesis. That would be Voyager's Nemesis episode.
Threshold.
But I mean, there's Threshold right there.
We were at the convention last year, and they were defending Threshold, and I was like, you can't defend this. Like the salamanders, like it was a lot. Anyway, okay. This question is also for both of you. What number am I thinking of? Or David?
47.
Nope, both wrong. Sorry.
47.
This question is.
What number were you thinking of?
Oh, it's 3. It was 4. I said 4. You said 3. Anyway, you both win. It's fine. Okay, next question. This is for David. What character would you have killed off in your novels and didn't? And why is it Barkley? Because I have a personal vendetta against Barkley. Oh, we're losing you, David. Oh, no.
I think the video did it again. I'm so sorry. I have feedback for StreamYard. You may need to drop and come back. I am so sorry. I have words
Come
for
back,
StreamYard.
Uh-oh.
Anyway,
But I think that
All
means
right.
he agrees he should have killed off Barkley.
That's
I'm
what I
going to
think.
take it as an agree. He should have died. Okay, great. All right, we'll keep chugging along. We'll keep chugging along. Okay, next question, Kirsten. Carpet or no carpet on a starship?
No carpet.
This
Sorry.
is okay. So this is the second. I've asked this question twice now, and both times, both people, you and David Livingston have both said no carpet. But there was quite a thing about there not being carpet in Star Trek Picard, and I am on the no carpet train. It makes no sense. Why would you have carpet on a spaceship?
I was,
thank you for
and I
agreeing
was
with
not working on the show anymore by the time those conversations were happening, so I can't even help
Sure.
you as to why.
It's a weird question. Anyway, okay, this question is for you, Kirsten. Yes, carpet. No carpet. We all agree. Okay, this question is for you, Kirsten. If Shuttle A leaves Starship A going warp 2 and Shuttle B leaves Starship B going warp 3, do you think, given the opportunity, Janeway will kill again?
Yes. 100%.
She will. Okay.
Is it a Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah. She'd do it again. Kate said it herself. She'd do it again. Okay. All right. David, this question is for you. What is the most used app on your phone?
Probably a Wordle game.
Wordle, perfect. I play a block game a lot, but yeah, gotcha. All right. This is a true or false question. Either one of you can answer this. True or false? Kirk says Khan in Wrath of Khan longer than Spock in Star Trek Into Darkness.
False.
Kirsten?
I think it's true. But I don't know, because I saw Into Darkness
Zachary
exactly
Quinto says
once.
it longer. Zachary
Does he?
says it for 10 seconds. Shatner says it for 6. I counted. I watched both films. I counted.
But the one that lives in my brain is Kirk. So
Yeah. I was never my okay, I'm gonna go into this, but my ongoing lore is I was an extra on Star Trek Into Darkness. And
I'm sorry.
It was a lot of fun. So it was fun. They tried to give me a red shirt, and I looked at the costume assistant, and I said, "I'm not a red shirt," and she gave me a blue one. So I was like, "I'll take it." So it was good. I had a great time. Zach, Chris Pine is the reason I went to Berkeley. He told me I had to go. We were like standing waiting for a set, and he was lovely. Everyone was so
Yeah, but
great.
for the rest of
So
your
lovely.
life, you're going to have to admit you were in Star Trek Into Darkness.
And I'm fine with it. I'm in one of the trailers. I made money. It's fine. I still have the checks, David. They still roll it every once in a while. I got a check for like 6 cents one day. It was great. I've never felt better in my entire life. Okay, next question. This is for both of you. What is the most underrated breakfast food?
Cream of wheat.
Good question. Good answer. Good answer.
I don't know why
Kirsten?
ham came to mind.
Ham. That's a great breakfast food. I love that. Perfect. Perfect.
Cousin to
All right.
bacon.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next question. Fuck, marry, kill. Ricardo, Benedict, Naveen. You don't have to answer, David, but you have to say one.
Well, first of all, does it have to be that version of Montalban? Could it be young Montalban?
It's up to you. I only said Ricardo Montalban. It could be anyone.
All Montalban are valid.
Let's see. I guess we'll say fuck Canderbatch, kill Candaban, and marry Candrews.
All right, Kirsten.
I would just switch the two. Marry Candrews, kill Condravatch, fuck Contalban, I guess, yeah. Did I do that
here we
right?
are.
I don't know this game.
No, there's no right or wrong answer. I think that was great. Okay, next question. This is for either one of you. What is your most controversial Trek opinion? Controversial.
Trek is Starfleet is the military.
Was that
No,
yours,
it-
Kirsten?
No. Mine within the universe that I work in is that Star Trek is an imaginary universe. It's fictional. It doesn't track with
How
our
dare
actual-
you?
Well, you
These
said
are
we were
controversial
military,
opinions.
so
I think about it sometimes. I wish we saw more. We see this a little bit in I think in Discovery and a little bit other places, but where the Federation doesn't center around Starfleet, where we get to see a little more of what's going on. And I think that that's like really cool because it feels like the Federation is a military state sometimes. Where I'm like, why are they involved in everything? And they're supposed to be scientists, but they're everywhere. And then, yeah. And I also believe that Star Trek is fictional. I think sometimes people take it a little too seriously. And I think it's there to be fun and teach us things. And I think we have to let it kind of be fictional. And like, I always joke that I'm living my life to my Star Trek future. So I go, I'm doing everything I can to get us there. So it's fictional until it's not. All right. Anyway, next question. Kirsten, this is for you. How's she both? We've had this running gag about this. Why is she both?
So I'm not going to answer it specifically because the show.
I know you're on
has
an
not
NDA.
done
You
it
can't
yet.
talk about it. Yeah.
But what I will say is, why not? Like,
This
it's
is our way-
800
yes.
years later. I can think of 10 ways off the top of my head that could have happened, none of which are a reach. So, like,
This is
why are
exactly
you
why we wanted to ask you this
What,
question.
why are you?
'Cause I was
Yeah, why do you?
hoping-
Why do you kink shame?
Why not? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I
We wouldn't
think about
do
that all the time. Like, why not? Like that was the bet. That was the perfect answer to that. Also, David, here is your ironically, your David, your question. What's one Trek species you think is secretly much weirder or kinkier than Canon has shown?
Betazoids.
What?
I think it's weirder too. Great answer. Love.
They
love,
are
love.
freaky.
Okay.
I think they're getting into each other's heads and like swapping bodies when we don't know it.
I mean,
It's them
we saw
and
it.
Trill. A Betazoid Trill, like kind of a circle thing. Like they might have a Trill as a third. You know, it's.
I'm hearing a novel.
I'm saying it's getting weird. That's all I'm saying.
I'm hearing your next novel, and I am.
Hey.
It's in my pre-sale right now.
I think Star Trek is due for a Harlequin romance novel. I think we're ready for it. I think we're ready. Okay. Next question. Next question. Can we be friends?
Please.
Please. Yay, we're friends. Okay, great, perfect. Okay. We'll work on it, Dave.
I say the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Next question. Is it true or false? It's a true or false question. Cardassians have neck ridges because Mark Alameda was or has a very long neck.
False.
The actor who
David-
plays Bill Ducat.
I was about to say, you would know
The actor.
better than most people, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you meet him in person once? Is
Who?
that somebody else's story? Mark
Did you
Lyman?
not examine his neck?
This was one I had to think about, but
Weren't the Cardassians established before Mark Alamo played Ducat?
Yeah.
So that would be false.
But he
No,
played.
But he played.
The character design was set before Mark Alamo played one.
I think Mark Alamo played the first Cardassian.
He was the
movie.
first
he played the first-
Cardassian, just not
So
Ducat.
this is actually
Yeah.
true. It
Oh,
is
really?
true. The reason they have a neck ridge is because of that. His nickname on set was Long Neck. Because he had such a long neck, they decided we'll put ridges on it.
He's
Wow.
compensating.
In the Star Trek Before Time.
Long neck.
That long
Are
neck
you
girl,
sure
that
that's
long
why they
neck.
called him? Are you sure that's why they called him long neck and not just that he was in drinking
I wasn't on
Budweiser?
set for that one. I wasn't on set for that one. So we should have asked David Livingston when he was on. Okay, next question. What is the most underrated Trek episode? Underrated.
Mine.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Which one? You did
Starship
right?
Down.
Okay.
Oh.
Starship Down.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna go with Sacred Ground.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a really good one. I like that one a lot.
It got a lot of hate
All
when it
right,
first
next
came out.
question. You hated it when it first came out?
No, it got a lot of hate when it first came out.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. Okay, well, next question then. What is the most overrated Star Trek episode? Say it, Kirsten. I know you want to say
got
it.
an answer.
You got something real.
Well, see, the problem
I know
is
you
it's
got
not an episode. It's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. But no. But
We can do that. Should have been your
overrated
controversial
episode.
Star
Oh,
Trek take.
I will give you one. Yeah.
Okay.
The Best of Both Worlds Part 2.
You know what?
Yeah, that's a major
That's
anticlimax.
actually
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's my answer too, actually, Kirsten. I think the second part just doesn't live up to it. You could tell they were like, we gotta wrap this up. I don't like.
Well, the
Also,
prob-
I have a. We talked
Oh,
about it on
and
the
Unity
Salon.
Part 1 deserves to be on that list just because you don't see Nimoy until the final 5 seconds of the episode, and he only says one damn line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, what
I
I
would
was going to
say
say
that,
about the story I heard is that Pillar wrote the first part thinking he wasn't going to have to come back and write the conclusion at the top of the next season. So
That's
he
right,
didn't give a
yes.
shit. He like
He was basically like, I'm out of here. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
and then he
yeah,
had
it
to come
doesn't
back.
have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it loses. We've talked about this on the Salon. That Best of Both Worlds is Riker's story, and like it's Riker about it's about him. And the second part of that is about Picard, where I don't think it makes much sense because the setup is Riker. He should leave the ship. Like at the end of that, like I think that if TNG was happening now, we would get a series with 2 captains on separate ships, and they would diverge at some point. Like I just don't think he was destined to stay on there because after that he became the guy the layman question guy. You go, what do you mean by that? Like that's kind of where he kind of fell to the rest of the series, unfortunately.
He became Picard's Huckleberry.
I think it's okay.
Very much.
I think it's okay to say Picard. Who cares?
You're previewing our next programming, but let's let Will wrap up.
That's my
Co-creator.
whole fucking time.
Spoiler alert for what we're talking about in a couple of weeks. But
Okay.
let's
Okay, let's keep
Will
moving on
wrap
these
up the transwarp round.
We're almost done, I promise. So, Kirsten, this question is for you. You wrote the Star Trek Discovery episode, Saints of Imperfection. Did you write that Wilson Cruz would be naked as penance for the show killing him off? Stanley specifically asked me wanted me to ask this question.
First of all, did you actually write it?
Some of it.
She did.
Yeah. No, I mean, y'all have to understand.
You never
Like,
know
the
in
writing-
TV.
The writer of record is not necessarily the person who has like the most words on the page at the end of the day.
Sure.
And that episode was created during an incredible amount of turmoil on our series. Big, huge transitionings happening, coming at you from all directions. So there were lots of voices. What I found, like most annoying about that was that this was the second time I was forced to bring somebody back from the dead. And it is my least favorite thing to do as a writer. Like Star Trek 3, the return, Search for Spock or whatever that, like, I have hated all of those stories ever since then. I love that Spock got to come back and we got to do all the cool things with him and I got to, whatever. But like that movie pissed me off, like very few things ever have, because when he died in Wrath of Khan, I was destroyed. I was a little girl and I was absolutely devastated but and since then I've had people in my life die and they don't get to come back. So the idea that he did just like irritated me. And then I inherited the Voyager books. Janeway had already been killed. I was assured she's never coming back. And then, we're getting to book 4 and they're like, hey, you're going to bring Janeway back. And I'm like, I'm sorry. What? So then, here we were. I mean, the thing with Wilson was we did know from the time we killed him that he was going to be coming back for sure.
Mm.
It was just a matter of sort of like when and how, and then it got to like my number was up in the writer's room, and they're like, "Oh, Kirsten will figure it out." I'm like, "Oh my God, really?" So it was,
Mushrooms.
The writer's
Well,
room.
you're welcome to take
it's your
credit for
basic,
him being
mushrooms bring a dead guy back to life thing. It happens all the time. Right?
Hey, I'm not saying I know from experience, but I have heard that mushrooms do have certain magical properties that do make you feel like parts of you are dying and coming back.
Sorkin.
I've heard.
He
Will take it away. Conclude.
Wait. Just to go back to the question though, he was naked because I didn't think the transporter thing could transport clothes. Like I do think about that shit, and I'm probably stupid for doing it. But like, where were the clothes going to come from?
But thank you for thinking of it.
Yeah, from like atoms and shit. And you're welcome. Also, you're welcome.
Thank you, Kirsten. Okay, David, this question is for you. Which Litverse character would you love to see make it to canon in either a series or a movie or somewhere? Was there a character of yours that you wish would make it to canon at some point?
Prim.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
that's a great
from the Vanguard books. And if not her, Cervantes Quinn.
Great options. Well, from your
of course, I'd much rather just make the Vanguard series, but I'm sure that's not going to happen.
Oh, the Vanguard series was so good. I just want to say that it's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very kind. Very kind.
All right. So this is my next question, and this is for both of you. Which book or work of some kind of the other person's would you like to see adapted to another audio drama? So Kirsten something of David's, David something of Kirsten's.
I'm thinking about Kirsten's Ood.
I mean,
I know this was a rough one because you guys have done so much, and like there's so much of it that I would like love to see kind of get
Full circle.
Back.
Do you think Full Circle could support something like that?
It'd be a monster, but yeah.
Because, or you can pull like one thread out of it or something.
Yeah, the time shifting I think would be so hard to communicate via audio because it does jump all over the place. But
that is an issue.
I mean, for me, the problem is both of the ones that I would. I mean, both ones I would love to see, I just don't think can happen. So it makes me sad to say them. One, because I just don't think it can, which would be Destiny. The Destiny trilogy, I think, is like one of my favorite things ever. Blew my mind. I got to read it before it was out in the world because I was working on Full Circle, and I was just like, "Holy shit, we can do this now! All right, fine, let's go." And the other one actually is the Vanguard series, but David, I don't think will let me do that. So.
Well, it's not that I won't let you. It's just that I have trouble seeing how it works in a strictly auditory medium. I feel like it depends on certain visuals to work. If you can prove me otherwise, if you can prove to me that I'm wrong, then I'm with you 100%. I'll take that dive. I'll take that bitch.
All right.
Although I think Firewall would probably be a better fit for audio.
Yeah, I know. I thought of that one too.
Firewall would be good. Although it's a lot like No Man's Land, but not in terms of plot, but in terms of focus.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll start working. I'll start work now. This pitch meeting's been great. Thank you so much to both of you. I'll start working on stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, great pitch. Well told. Well told.
I'm already ingratiating myself. Great. Okay. The last question. This is the toughest question of all. Okay.
Oh my God.
Did you have a good time?
When? Give me back.
Right now, it is. You have a good time.
Oh, now. Yeah.
Right now, yeah.
That's your prom. Your high school prom. Did you enjoy
that? Yeah.
Kirsten had a terrible time. Absolutely awful. Didn't love it.
At my high school prom. No, I did not.
Oh, terrible time.
Tonight, yes, I had a fabulous time.
No shit.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
When are we doing this again?
This was better than prom.
Well,
You need
Yeah,
to join
anytime.
us.
Yeah,
Y'all
come on.
need to
We'd
join
love
us
to have
for the
you.
next 3 weeks.
Absolutely. That is the perfect segue. I'm gonna play musical chairs real quick, put you on either side of me. That's actually a perfect segue. We would love to have you both again. Y'all have been so generous with your time. Thank you. I know we went over, so thank you very much for sticking with us. Y'all are delightful. Star Trek Con is delightful. We want more, so everybody go listen to Star Trek Con on all of the podcast platforms, not the one you listen to podcasts. Listen to it on all of them and YouTube. And get excited as we will hopefully have both of you back in the future to talk about other projects. Kirsten brought up Star Trek Destiny of David Max. I loved that series.
Oh, thank you.
I want to talk about all of y'all's books, the episodes that you've written, just wonderful. So thank you all very much for being here. And just one quick final note before we hit that credits button. Next week is Thanksgiving here in America, so we will be taking the evening off. But in 2 weeks, we will be kicking off our Star Trek Picard retrospective. And spoiler alert from me, and I swear to God, this isn't just because one of our guests was a co-creator of Star Trek Picard. Season 1 is my favorite, and we're going to be talking about it on December 4th. So get excited. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Until then, again, Kirsten, David, thank you very much for joining us. And to everyone in the chat, follow us, like, subscribe, go listen to Star Trek Con everywhere. And as always, live long and prosper.
All hands abandon ship. Proceed to the nearest evacuation zone immediately.